Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. We begin today with a huge announcement in this year's race for the mayor of Indianapolis. Wish TV will host a 1-hour debate with the two candidates, the first live televised 1-hour debate in nearly 20 years. News 8's government reporter Garrett Berquist has those details.
This will be the first time the two candidates have debated each other in person, and it will be one of their last chances to make their cases to voters. Let's begin with the incumbent. Democrat Joe Hogsett is seeking a third 4-year term. He's told voters he wants to finish projects interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. He got nearly 3/4 of the vote in 2019.
Well, I think the mayor's got to lay out his vision for the next 4 years. It's important, I think, to voters that he does that. Talks about what he's going to do, not just about what he has done. We're seeing an incredible amount of development downtown Indianapolis. There was a lot of criticism over the last couple of years that he hadn't done enough, and I think those critics are being proven wrong by all the announcements that's just been made in the last couple of months.
Republican Jefferson Shreve has built his campaign around public safety.
He needs to show people that he is a credible person who will be a great leader for our city, which I absolutely believe he will do. And then he also needs to help people understand that, in fact, the problems our city's facing, the problems they see when they walk around and when they hear about things on the TV, are problems that are a direct cause and direct correlation with the lack of leadership by Joe Hogsett.
Tu and John both say the debate could be a huge moment for Jefferson Shreve, but give very different answers about his weaknesses.
I think Jefferson Shreve has to figure out which Jefferson Shreve is going to be at the debate. It'd probably be interesting to see a Jefferson Shreve versus Jefferson Shreve debate, because in the primary he was a Trumper and now he doesn't want to be a Trumper.
If Jefferson Shreve is anything, he is an honest man, and when asked a question gives you an honest answer. And sometimes honest answers are hard, particularly when you're looking at hard problems as a city. But I think that our city's ready to hear those honest answers from Jefferson Shreve.
Once again, the debate will air at 6 p.m. on Monday, October 23rd. It will air exclusively right here on Wish TV and on Indiana's only statewide TV news network. At the City County Building, I'm Garrett Bergquist for Wish TV, wishtv.com, and like us on Facebook.
We want to turn now to a challenge facing state and local leaders around Indiana: the use of town marshals programs in Indiana. Our I-Team obtained a video of two men who police say were pretending to be trained police officers. I-Team 8 has also learned that two tried to start their own police department in a central Indiana town. Here's senior investigative reporter Richard Essex.
In May, two men showed up unannounced to an East Germantown council meeting. Their plan was to start a police department.
Two individuals came in here armed with firearms, one of them wearing a shirt that said police, and driving vehicles that they actually showed myself and other members of the town that included computers and just law enforcement looking apparatuses in it.
Joe Lips is the town attorney. He says the two men made their pitch to patrol the town, provide law enforcement at a cut rate price. The caveat, they wanted to be sworn into office that night. And they even provided their own oath of office for the town council president to read.
You know, it was about 2 paragraphs probably of just that they'll become deputized as our marshals and carry on their duties from there.
He said the guy looked like a cop and could have been charged with impersonating a police officer. It was the mention of his father's name that really got Lips' attention. Lips comes from a family of cops.
He told me that my father was actually his training officer when it came to being a reserve officer in the city of Richmond. But through unofficial search on that, nothing came back.
The two men offered their services to the town for $1. In return, they asked the town to provide vehicle insurance and a place to do paperwork. The town considered their proposal, but they needed a little bit more information before moving forward, like a background check, which I'm told was never provided.
We asked the questions. The council did its due diligence in interviewing them and questioning them for as much time as was allotted during the meeting. And then with follow-up with them over the phone, they didn't have answers. So it made it a real easy decision to decline their offer.
So who are these guys? Here is video iTeammate obtained from the Newcastle Police Department. Sheriff John Sproles was off duty when he came across a black Dodge Charger without a license plate. He says the car looked like a retired police car. It had police lights, a center console with a laptop computer in the front seat, just like you would find in a police car. And the driver is armed. The driver told Sheriff Sproles that he was hoping to start a police department in East Germantown. This video was taken July 2nd, almost 2 months after the May East Germantown Council meeting.
It's not said and done yet, but I'm hoping for the town of Pershing, Germantown.
Is that Indiana or Ohio?
It's Indiana. It's outside between Richmond and what's that?
So who's the marshal there?
There's no marshal yet, but I said they're trying to start a police department.
The driver told Sheriff Sproles that he was coming from Detroit. That was a lie.
You didn't come from Michigan today. Go ahead and face up to it. You want to be a police officer? We're dealing with so much of this stuff that we're sick and tired of it. We're sick and tired of these little towns. You've already been arrested for impersonating. And I'm not trying to be ugly. All right, brother, I care about you. I'm not, just please understand me, all right? But for the citizens, man, for the citizens, if you will lie to me, if you will lie to us, here's my big concern. You know we can get the facts, right? You'll lie to us. What will you do to people who ain't going to figure this stuff out? This is what bothers me. I'm just speaking from my heart here, okay?
Remember the two guys that tried to start a police department in East Germantown?
Well, guess what? One of those guys happened to be a guy that we are watching who is a known gang member trying to infiltrate, and he was one of them. We are monitoring. There is a nationally recognized violent gang who has the goal to infiltrate small town departments. We know of a gang member, a gang leader who has had expunged records, has spent an enormous amount of time in prison, who got a badge in a small town in Indiana because his buddy was the town marshal.
The Indiana General Assembly has put limits on the number of marshals a town can have. In Indianapolis, Richard Essex, Wish TV, iTeammate.
We're bringing in people that are there to monetize that position in a way that we didn't think about before, that requires a city or town to pass an ordinance to state the number of reserve officers they're going to have, so that we don't have someone that might be passing out a badge or an ID that's unknown to the town board or to the city council. And that can create a real liability if that stuff's going on.
Law enforcement authorities also confirmed to us that the state does not keep a list of current marshals working in Indiana communities. Coming up, does Indiana law put limits on what super PACs can do in the state? The question before the Indiana Supreme Court, next on All Indiana Politics. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics. There's a relatively quiet but important election question before the Indiana Supreme Court today. Does Indiana law allow unlimited corporate contributions to so-called super PACs? The state's high court heard arguments in the case Thursday. The Indiana Right to Life Victory Fund argues state election code violates the First Amendment by putting limits on corporate contributions to super PACs. Both Right to Life and the state seem to agree that it does. Right to Life hopes to spend the money on issues in the 2024 election cycle. There's no timeline for when the court might rule on the question. It would forward its answers to the U.S. Court of Appeals, which is hearing the original case. Coming up, we bring in Indiana's best political team to talk the race for governor next on All Indiana Politics. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Destiny Wells and Republican Allie Bartlett. The big news here this week, confirmation that we'll host the first debate in the Indianapolis mayoral race. So let's talk about that. Allie, is this one big chance for Jefferson Shreve to kind of make a big leap in this race?
Opportunity that he will have to really get his stance on the issues out there in contrast to Mayor Hogsett. Obviously, they just haven't had this type of platform yet at this point, and so it certainly will be his chance to kind of get out there and show the compare and contrast between their positions.
Destiny, I know you and I had this conversation last week, but once again, is Joe Hogsett in any danger of maybe losing this race, in your opinion?
I don't think he's in any danger. I think that Jefferson Shreve had an opportunity to build some coalitions, but unfortunately that the Republican base is just so fractured that he was unable to do that. He changed some of his positions. He lost some of his base. And, you know, he was putting a lot of attention on public safety. But as of last night, he was not able to get an endorsement from the FOP. The FOP will be neutral in this race. So I think that that is actually a win for Mayor Hogsett. And as we get closer, it just becomes more clear that he has this race in the bag.
Allie, your thoughts on the FOP's decision to not endorse a candidate?
I will say it's more rare for the FOP and similar organizations to endorse a candidate than to remain neutral. So I don't really put a ton of stock in the fact that they are remaining neutral, especially when we're talking about a race with an incumbent mayor. I just don't find that all that surprising.
To that point, we would expect crime to be a big conversation here during this debate. Allie, how much do you want to hear from Jefferson Shreve or both candidates really when it comes to that issue?
Yeah, I think, and I've said this before, crime is a major issue facing the city of Indianapolis. It has to be at the forefront of the discussion for both candidates in order for them to have effective campaigns. And I think it is going to be the center of attention for both of them.
Destiny, has Mayor Hogsett done a good job when it comes to crime?
We've talked before about homicide statistics lowering last year 16%. I think Mayor Hogsett has the same problems that a lot of urban mayors have across the U.S. in the face of gun violence, especially being a blue city and a supermajority red state where we have very relaxed laws around firearms. He'll be able to show some of the policy that he has recently put forward and some of the incentives that he's offered to the IMPD in addition to what he already has. So I think he's wrapped his arms around crime as much as he can, given the lack of support from the State House.
I want to turn our attention now to the race for governor. A couple of big items this week. Republican Brad Chambers, the state's former commerce secretary, has loaned his campaign $5 million to get started. Allie, just where does this race stand in your opinion? And it would seem that maybe Mike Braun has kind of been the front runner, at least from our perspective. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think we are witnessing a race here with several candidates that can self-fund. So the interesting part is that there's not just one candidate that can self-fund. And so I think that's actually a good thing. It's allowing these candidates that, you know, while they do have larger amounts of money at their disposal, the playing field is still relatively even across candidates. I will say I agree with you that Mike Braun has been the front runner. I think he's going to continue to be the front runner, so we'll see what happens next.
Destiny, this could turn ugly and get pretty heated pretty quickly. Can Jennifer McCormick take advantage of that, assuming she gets the party's nomination, the Democratic Party's nomination?
I don't think it's a disadvantage to Jennifer to have a more crowded primary field across the aisle. There's going to be a lot of blood drawn through May, and it's just going to expose some of those weaknesses in the Republican candidate, whomever it ends up being. I think it is a bit of a rich man's game, and it probably will end up being a lot between Braun and Chambers. And so Jennifer will have time to contrast herself in a way that is positive and will draw support from the Hoosier electorate.
What about the sitting Lieutenant Governor, Suzanne Crouch?
I think that it's a rich man's game, and she's not going to have enough money at the end of the day, and that's very unfortunate. I don't like that. That is how our political scene has shaped up to be.
Allie, you agree?
don't agree with that. Suzanne Crouch is one of our party's best fundraisers historically. And like I said, if you really look at the amount of money that's been raised and or contributed personally by each of these candidates, it's a pretty even playing field at this point. So I think it's actually going to come down to substance, and that's better for Hoosier voters.
You know, to the point about money, we've also seen both Eric Doden and Brad Chambers with new TV ads this week. From a political perspective, from both of you, your thoughts on that, how much does that play into changing voters' minds? Destiny.
I was a bit disappointed with the Brad Chambers ad. I thought it was a very vanilla ad, and it was full of vanilla. And when I say that, I say 60-second ad, a 7-figure buy, and I didn't see one non-white person for 60 seconds, even in his place of work. Doden's ad is very similar. I think it calls to only a certain part of the electorate, and I find it unfortunate. But hey, just set that money on fire, I guess.
Allie, I'll let you respond to that.
All I have to say is that it makes sense that both of these candidates are seeking to be on TV early because they don't have the type of name ID advantage that Lieutenant Governor Crouch and Senator Braun have at this point. So it's not surprising to see them getting on TV first. I think both of their ads were good. And I think we're going to see a lot more of it.
Yeah, we'll see if that has an impact. Let's talk national politics now, ladies. A new poll Thursday by CNN suggests President Biden may be in trouble for re-election. More than half of Democratic voters in the poll said that they'd rather have someone else, but would vote for the president if he's the nominee. Destiny, can President Biden overcome these perceptions that maybe he's, you know, a little bit too old or not popular enough?
You know, there's not much we can do about his age, right? We can't turn back the clock. But I will point out that that poll, it said that they'd still vote for him, right? And across the aisle, it said that almost half of Republicans, if Donald Trump is the nominee, will vote for the Democrat. So I think it was a bit of a referendum on age. People are dissatisfied with how their politicians and political representatives, their age. We have the problem in Congress, and Joe Biden would be the oldest president going into a second term, but I don't think it's going to compromise his ability to maintain the presidency.
All right. So, Allie, I want to get your response to that. And, you know, to her point, why can Republicans talk about Joe Biden's age when Donald Trump is essentially similar age? I mean, why does the same hold true for the former president?
So I think this poll is very interesting, and it's very telling about the state of this race. People are not happy with Joe Biden's performance. When we talk about the comparison in age between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I think we're talking about coherency, the ability to form complete sentences and thoughts on television and when he's speaking to a crowd. People are scared of the fact that our president get a thought together. And so I think when we're actually talking about somebody who can or cannot perform the tasks required to be the president of the United States. And we see much more energy from Donald Trump. We see more focus, and we see the ability to actually speak, which is probably the bare minimum for somebody trying to be the president of the United States.
Yes.
I think that the comparison is less about the number and more about whether or not they can handle it at this stage of their life.
Destiny, I want 45 seconds left. Take us home. Respond to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Donald Trump's ability to speak. I mean, he can type in all capital letters on his social media account, which he's doing less and less of, right? Because he's in so much litigation and has been scolded. That poll parsed out performance, and it was really a problem with age. And so I would say that I stand on my last comments, and it's not. And at the end of the day, there's just not a good alternative. Sorry.
Well, we'll see what happens, and we know how polls go. They haven't rang true these past couple of years, so at least these past couple of elections. So we're all going to be watching, ladies. Hey, good to see you both. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and let's go Colts, right?
Let's go Colts.
Yes,
at least we can agree on that. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. A reminder that tomorrow is Patriots Day as we honor those who died in the 9/11 terrorist attacks. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. Have a great rest of your weekend.